Hey guys, so my name's Kylie Rouse, and I'm going to teach you about the causes of foodborne illnesses. And um, pathological hazards are inherent to some foods and can cause disease if allowed to grow. So there are 5 common risk factors. They are purchasing food from unsafe sources, failing to cook food properly, holding food at incorrect temperatures, for instance, having chicken and when it's supposed to be warm and then you let it sit out all day and it gets too cold and then it's not good. Or, for example, if you have chicken again and you leave it in your car on a hot summer day and then it gets super hot and then it's also not good and you can also get sick from that as well. Another common risk factor is using contaminated equipment or practicing poor personal hygiene. For example, you don't want someone who doesn't wash their hands after cracking an egg or touching raw meat, or someone who does not put their hair up or does not wear a beard mask. Like, you don't want someone with facial hair that's not wearing a beard mask to let that beard hair potentially fall into your food, because that can also make you sick because you don't know if they're sick, and if they're sneezing or coughing as well on your food, that's going to transfer those germs and put you at risk as well. Hazards are inherent to our food, and a hazard is a biological, chemical, or physical property that may cause an unacceptable consumer health risk. A pathogen, on the other hand, is a disease-causing microorganism. There are different types of pathogen. There are 4 types: bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi, also known as molds. And an infection is an illness from live pathogens. An intoxication is an illness as well, but it's caused by eating toxins produced by microorganisms. So they're similar, but they're both illnesses, but they're different from what causes them. Most bacteria grow best in low-acid food and when sugar is present and when proteins are present, or proteins can be present. So this is what bacteria need to thrive in. Some bacteria also need oxygen, and some can thrive without. The ideal bacteria growth is 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Below 41 degrees inhibits growth, and above 130 degrees Fahrenheit is lethal. That will kill the bacteria. So bacteria above that, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to die, so it's safe. The danger zone for food is between 41 degrees Fahrenheit and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when bacteria is at its strongest and can most rapidly form. Fungi, on the other hand, require nutrients, oxygen, and time to grow. Usually the dominant microorganisms only in foods that are too dry, acidic, or sugary for optimal growth by bacteria. So if bacteria can't thrive in that environment, then fungi will probably, or mold, will probably be what's present. So cheese, when you think of cheese, you usually don't have per se bacteria. Like when you see cheese, you're like, if that cheese is old, you can tell that cheese has mold on it. And don't just cut it off and think it's good, because that bacteria and that fungi can spread throughout the cheese, which you might not even see the visual effect of it yet, but it's already spread microly through the cheese. So you should still throw the whole thing away. Viruses and protozoa do not reproduce in foods and thus can only cause infections. Potentially hazardous foods are better known as PHF, are foods that are more likely than others to be implicated in an outbreak of foodborne illnesses. Foods that favor rapid growth of microorganisms are an example of a potentially hazardous food. An acronym that goes along with PHF is FAT-TOM, which stands for Food, Acid, Time, Temp, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. These are key things that cause foods to be more likely implicated to cause an outbreak in foodborne illness. A communicable disease is an illness that is transmitted from one person to another through direct or indirect means. And carriers are an important source of infection and intoxication causing microorganisms in foods. So for instance, if I am the carrier and I carry, let's say, the flu, and I sneeze, then I can cause that to spread through the food. That's just one example of spreading an infection. There is both indirect and direct routes, which I mentioned before, through communicable disease. And foodborne infection are Salmonella, for example, and pathogenic E. coli. Those are just two of the many, many different kinds of foodborne infections. And those are caused by physical and chemical hazards that cause a threat to food safety, which include allergens. Failure in operations and food handling practices contribute to outbreaks as well. So if someone can't properly wash or handle the food like they should be, and they don't really know what they're doing, or they're rushing through their job, then they're putting you, the consumer, at risk more so than themselves. And that's all for the causes of foodborne illness.